All right, ready to jump into another deep dive? Today, we're looking at Kingfa Science and Technology, India Limited. Got their 2023-2024 annual report and their business responsibility and sustainability report right here. Going to try to unpack it all, see what they're all about, how they're doing, the whole picture.
Yeah, sounds good. They're a pretty big deal in engineering plastics in India, actually, working with all sorts of materials, PA, PBT, ABS, you name it.
Not just some small operation then. Some history behind them, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Been around since '83, part of that larger Kingfa Science Tech Cut Ltd. Over in China. They own like 75% almost of the Indian branch. But what's interesting to me is all this expansion they're doing at this brand new place in Chakan near Pune, totally state of the art, all the latest compounding lines, the whole 9 yards. Looks like they're serious about, staying on top of their game and growing too, of course.
That's good to see. Ambition is always a good sign.
Yeah.
But it's not just about making more, right? They got to stay ahead of the curve, innovate. Notice they're putting a lot of energy into R&D.
Oh, absolutely. They've put serious money into a new lab, not just content to be another manufacturer. They want to be a total solution provider. Find new and innovative ways to solve their customers' problems.
Interesting. So they're really aiming to lead the pack,
Hmm.
but got to zoom out a bit too, right? What about the industry itself? Seems like the Indian economy is doing pretty well. That's got to be good news for a company like Kingfa.
For sure, for sure. India has been a real bright spot globally, even with all the craziness going on. Last fiscal year, 2023, 2024, they became the fastest growing G20 economy. Manufacturing sector grew by, get this, 11.6%, and construction was close behind, 9.5%. That kind of growth creates a ton of opportunity.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Rising tide lifts all boats, as they say. And the Purchasing Managers Index, or PMI, seems to back that up, right? It was above 55 for most of the year. And for those who might not be familiar, that usually means the manufacturing sector is growing. In March 2024, it hit 59.1, highest it's been in, well, quite a while.
Yeah, pretty wild, right? Even with everything going on globally, things are looking good in India for manufacturing. And that means a company like Kingfa, they're in a good spot to keep growing, for sure.
So the bigger picture looks good, but what about Kingfa themselves? How are they doing individually? Let's start with revenue, the basics. Did they live up to the hype?
They did, yeah. Revenue jumped from about, let me see, Rs 140,371.26 lakhs in fiscal year 2022-2023 to Rs 148,771.56 lakhs in 2023-2024. Solid increase.
Some more money coming in. But are they using it wisely? What about profitability?
The real question, right? Not just growing, gotta grow smart. Looks like they are, though. EBITDA margins, which basically tell you how much profit they're making from operations, are trending upwards, and their profit after tax PT is healthy too. They seem to be managing costs well, running things efficiently.
That's good to hear. Now, what about the future? Got to look ahead, too. A company's order book can tell us a lot. Did they give any details on that?
No hard numbers, unfortunately. But they did talk a lot about their, I guess you could call it, proactive approach to securing future business. Sounds like they're branching out, new customer segments, expanding what they offer, all that. Smart move to, spread the risk a bit, not rely too much on one area.
Makes sense. Diversification is key, especially in this day and age. Now, all this talk about strategy, how are they positioned in the market? Who are they up against?
Well, they've really cemented themselves as a leader in engineering plastics. They're the top dog for stuff like PA, PBT, and all sorts of blends and alloys. And remember, all that buzz about electric vehicles? They're not just watching from the sidelines. They've already got flame-retardant compounds for two-wheelers, and they're working on stuff for four-wheelers, too.
Wow, they really are thinking ahead. But future's one thing, got to have a solid foundation, too. What about their overall financial health?
They're doing all right based on their financials. Current ratio, which basically measures their ability to pay their short-term bills, is a very healthy 1.80, way up from last year. And their debt-to-equity ratio, which tells you how much they're relying on borrowed money, is down to 5.53%. That's down from over 9% the year before.
So managing their debt well, that's always good to see. But let's be real, every business has its challenges. What are some of the risks they need to watch out for?
One thing they highlighted, and we touched on this earlier, is how much raw material costs can change.
Right.
They use a lot of polypropylene, which comes from petroleum, so they're kind of at the mercy of oil prices. Makes it tough to, plan and budget when prices are jumping around.
Yeah, that's a valid concern for sure. Surely they've got some plans to deal with that, though, right?
They do, they do. They're working on diversifying where they get their materials, trying not to rely too much on any one supplier. Plus, they're using some fancy planning tools to try and anticipate those price swings and adjust accordingly.
Sounds like they're on top of it. But what about competition? It's a tough world out there. How are they staying ahead of the pack?
Well, their focus on innovation is key, for sure. All that investment in that new lab, that's a big sign that they're serious about developing cutting-edge stuff. They're always working on new products, tweaking their formulas, finding new ways to use their materials. It's all about constantly evolving, right?
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's not just about what they're doing at home, right? They've got global aspirations too.
Oh, yeah, for sure. They're not content with just being a big fish in the Indian pond. They're already in markets like South Africa and Thailand. Shows they can compete on a global stage, no problem.
All in all, paints a pretty positive picture, wouldn't you say?
Mhm.
Financially sound, strategically positioned, and innovating like crazy.
Yeah, from what I'm seeing, they're not just surviving, they're thriving. They're shaping the market, not just reacting to it.
Definitely a company to watch, that's for sure. But before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, what really stood out to you?
Honestly, their commitment to sustainability really impressed me. It's not just talk, they're really walking the walk. They're putting their money where their mouth is, investing in energy efficiency, waste reduction, all that. It's refreshing to see a company that cares about more than just the bottom line.
I agree, it's great to see. It's a reminder that success and responsibility can go hand in hand.
For sure, for sure. And honestly, in King Walva's case, their commitment to sustainability might actually be helping them succeed even more.
Yeah, that's a great point. Looks like we've got a lot more to unpack, though. Let's pick this back up in part two of our deep dive into Kingfa Science and Technology, India Limited. We'll dive deeper into their operations, their sustainability efforts, and really try to understand what the future holds for them. Stay tuned.
Looking forward to it. All right, so picking up where we left off with Kingfa.
Yeah, I was thinking about it, and that whole sustainability thing really stuck with me. It's not every day you see a company doing so well financially, and also really committing to, doing good.
Right. It's like they're not just talking the talk, they're walking the walk. And it seems to be working for them. More and more people are looking for companies that align with their values.
Definitely, absolutely. But let's dig a little deeper into those sustainability efforts. What are they actually doing to reduce their impact?
Well, they've got a whole system for waste management, like really comprehensive, trying to reduce waste in the first place, then reuse or recycle whatever they can. Plus, they're working on lowering their energy consumption and emissions.
So they're taking it seriously, not just a side project. But got to think about the big picture too, right? No company operates in a vacuum, as they say. What kind of external factors could impact them, even if they're doing everything right internally?
That's the thing, isn't it? You can have the best plans, but sometimes the world throws you a curveball. And they specifically mention this in the report that volatility of raw material costs, it's a big concern for them. Polypropylene, that key material for them, it comes from petroleum. So if oil prices go up, they're kind of stuck.
Yeah, that's got to be tough, trying to plan when things are so unpredictable. Are they just crossing their fingers and hoping for the best?
Nah, they're way too smart for that. They're diversifying their suppliers so they're not so reliant on any one source. Plus, they're using some pretty sophisticated tools to try and predict price changes and adjust accordingly.
Sounds like they're on top of it.
Yeah.
But even with the best planning, there are always surprises, right?
Yeah.
What other risks are out there that could, throw a wrench in the works?
Competition, that's always a factor. It doesn't matter what industry you're in, there's always someone trying to take your piece of the pie. And in engineering plastics, it's no different. Kingfa's got to keep innovating, stay ahead of the game.
So how are they doing that? What's their secret weapon?
Well, it all comes back to research and development, really. That new lab, that's a big investment, shows they're serious about innovation. They're constantly developing new products, refining their formulas, looking for new ways to use their materials.
And it's not just about staying ahead of the competition in India.
Right, right.
They've got that global ambition too.
Exactly. They want to be a global player, not just a local one. Expanding into markets like South Africa and Thailand, that's a big sign of that. Plus, it helps them spread the risk, not be so reliant on any one market.
Makes sense. Diversify, diversify. Now, let's switch gears a bit, talk numbers for a minute. Their financial performance, it's impressive. That current ratio, for example, 1.80, that's really strong. Can you break that down for our listeners? Why is that so important?
Sure, sure. The current ratio, basically, it tells you how well a company can pay its short-term bills. Like, if they had to pay everything they owe right now, could they do it? 1.80 means they've got almost twice as many assets as liabilities. So, they're not scrambling to make ends meet.
It's like a financial safety net, right?
Yeah.
Gives them peace of mind.
Exactly. Shows they're managing things well.
And they've also managed to reduce their debt, right? That debt to equity ratio is down significantly from last year.
Yep. That's a good sign. Means they're not relying too much on borrowed money. They're building a strong foundation.
So all things considered, they're in a pretty good spot, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Financially healthy, growing globally, committed to innovation and sustainability.
Absolutely. They're doing a lot of things right. But gotta remember, no company is perfect.
Yeah,
They'll need to keep adapting, keep innovating if they want to stay on top.
no doubt about that. Now, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, want to circle back to sustainability for a minute. It's clear they're really committed to it, not just paying lip service. Can you give us some concrete examples of what they're doing?
Oh, tons of stuff. They're investing in energy-saving technology at their factories, trying to reduce their reliance on fossil fuels. You've got big recycling programs trying to minimize waste.
So it's a holistic approach. They're thinking about it from all angles.
Exactly. And it's not just about the environment either. They're focused on social sustainability too, treating their employees fairly, investing in their well-being, engaging with the community.
It's really impressive how they've integrated into every part of their business.
It's not just a PR stunt, it's part of their DNA.
And that's what makes them stand out. Consumers are savvy. They can tell when a company is genuine.
For sure. Kingfa is not just trying to make a quick buck. They're trying to build something that lasts.
Well said. This has been a really fascinating conversation. We've covered a lot of ground, but there's still more to explore. In the final part of our deep dive, we'll take a closer look at their corporate governance, their leadership team, and how they're building a culture of ethics and transparency. Stick around. You won't want to miss it.
Welcome back to our deep dive. Final part now. Gonna wrap things up with Kingfa. We've looked at their numbers, their strategy, all that, but now I want to get into something a little different. Corporate governance, leadership, the stuff that really makes a company tick.
Yeah, the behind-the-scenes stuff, right? The foundation.
Exactly. It's easy to focus on the flashy stuff, but a company's true strength, it often comes down to how they govern themselves, their values, all that.
Absolutely. It's all connected.
So let's start with governance. What kind of structure do they have in place to make sure things are running smoothly, ethically, all that? Well, first off, they've got a clear board structure, good mix of executive and independent directors. That's a good sign, provides balance, prevents any one person or group from having too much power.
Checks and balances, always important. I also noticed they've got several committees, audit committee, risk management committee, all that. What do those do exactly?
Basically, they provide oversight, make sure Kingfa's following the rules, best practices, all that good stuff. The audit committee, for example, they're the ones making sure the financial reporting is accurate, transparent, and the risk management committee, well, they identify potential risks, try to figure out how to mitigate them, keep things running smoothly.
So they're not just for show, they actually have some teeth. Now let's talk about the people running the show, the leadership team. Who's at the helm? What can you tell us about them?
The managing director is Mr. Bo Jingen. He's got a ton of experience in the industry, and he's got a solid team behind him, bunch of experienced executives with diverse backgrounds. Suggests they've got a pretty well-rounded approach to decision-making.
Good to hear. Diversity of thought is always a plus. But leadership is more than just having the right people, right? It's about creating the right culture, an ethical culture.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Can't just talk about ethics, gotta live it. And from what I'm seeing, Kingfa is doing a pretty good job of that. They've got programs to support their employees, professional development, work-life balance, all that, trying to create a positive, healthy work environment.
It makes sense. Happy employees are productive employees.
Exactly. It all ties together.
And speaking of tying things together, we talked a lot about their environmental sustainability, but it seems like that's just one piece of the puzzle.
Right. They're also focused on social sustainability, treating their employees fairly, investing in their communities, all that.
It's really impressive how they've integrated sustainability into every aspect of their business.
Yeah, it's not just a marketing gimmick, it's part of their core values.
And that's what resonates with people. Consumers are looking for companies that walk the walk, not just talk the talk.
Couldn't agree more.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Kingfa, what are your final thoughts? What should our listeners take away from all this?
Well, I think Kingfa is a company that's doing a lot of things right. They're financially sound, strategically positioned, committed to innovation, and they're operating with a strong sense of ethics and responsibility.
It's been a fascinating journey exploring their story.
Definitely a company to keep an eye on. I think they've got a bright future ahead of them.
Couldn't agree more. Well, that's it for our deep dive into Kingfa Science and Technology, India Limited. We hope you enjoyed it, learned something new, maybe got inspired to do some more research on your own. That's what it's all about, right? Keep learning, keep exploring. Until next time, happy deep diving.